hasn't moved for all these banks that cut rates because most of the reductions were by the same magnitude, 50 basis points. What has really not changed either is that the global economy continues to fall into a recession because it's not the question of how cheap the money is, but that nobody wants to lend it, and that LIBOR rates are much above central bank target rates. But still, we have some respite in risk aversion this morning in Asia because local equities are moving higher. That's why the yen is somewhat down. But I think that it will not stop the longer-term trend of the yen appreciating against the greenback, and our target continues to be 97 at the end of the year.
Okay, give me a sense, though, of how you see the dynamics changing for the ECB and the euro, because we saw quite an unprecedented move by the ECB to actually cut rates. They've been resistant to doing so for so long. What changed the dynamics for them, and what does that mean for the ECB? Sorry, for the euro?
I think that the ECB policymakers finally woke up from a long sleep to the economic reality in the Eurozone. Let's face it, the ECB has, in my opinion, been a failure because there was not even 1 year since they were established for them to meet their inflation target. So for them to keep talking about the inflation target at a time that the economy is falling into recession was totally ridiculous. So it's really good for them and for the economy in the Eurozone that finally they embarked on the rate cutting cycle. And I think this is a favorable sign for the euro because the common currency was in decline out of concern that policymakers are not doing enough to help the consumers, the investments, the entire economy. I think that euro-dollar will firm by the end of the year to 142 because finally we have some policy action.
Okay. Let me ask you some of the local or regional Asian currencies here, and the Korean won stands out, not just because we saw the Bank of Korea following through with a 25 basis point rate cut, but because the Korean won really has been bearing a lot of the brunt of weakness in Asian currencies. We're past the 1,400 level for that pair against the U.S. dollar. What are the prospects do you see for the won?
I think that we are in the middle of a currency crisis in Korea, and dollar won will have to move much higher because Korea is really unlucky in that they have high short-term foreign debt, and at a time of global credit crunch, anybody who has debt to be rolled over has to be in trouble. So dollar won is over 50% up so far this year, and there is nothing stopping it. I think by the end of the year it will be at least at 1,600. And what the Korean Central Bank did today by cutting rates is just adding fuel to the fire of speculators against its own currency. I think that in order to prevent much deeper meltdown of the won, they will be forced to either massively intervene in the currency markets or more likely increase rates substantially to prevent the speculative attacks. So I think this currency is pretty much lost and it will become much weaker.
Okay. Is there any Asian currency right now that you think might provide some relief to investors?
I don't think so. Unfortunately, Asia as a whole, except for the Japanese yen, which will continue going up, is going to suffer because of several reasons. Risk aversion. Most of the markets here are considered to be emerging markets. Those that are not, such as Australia, will suffer because global recession is pushing commodities lower, and Australia has to cut rates much further to prevent a severe recession at home. You know, there's one interesting statistics. In July this year, Asia Pacific, excluding China, did not have a trade surplus at all. It was zero in terms of its external balance, down from $25 billion trade surplus as early as October last year. The global recession is putting huge downward pressure on their external positions, and therefore pretty much all currencies will continue to fall. And the Taiwanese dollar is an interesting one here because their competitive position versus Koreans, major competitor, is really weakening as the won is falling. So I think that the Taiwanese dollar will have to be allowed to go much further down to prevent sharp deterioration in Taiwanese exports.
All right, Derek, always a pleasure. Thanks for joining us today. Derek Kowalczyk,
Thank you for having me.
Chief Investment Strategist at CFC Seymour Limited, joining us there from Hong Kong.